In this video, we're going to cover the creation and management of both expenses and payees within Reporter Suite. So if you're familiar with the dashboard, you'll have noticed that we've got an expensed statistics box at the very top, in addition to an expenses tab within the recent activity widget. So in this case, if I click on the expenses tab, we'll see that we've got a few expenses entered, spanning supplies and materials and equipment repair and maintenance. So let's talk about how these got there. If we head over to our expenses section over on the left, we can see the full expenses details, in which case I can actually click on an expense to expand it to view any of the high-level information, but I can also filter by things like invoice number, the category, the payee, the type, and even any custom itemizations that I may have entered. So for instance, if I wanted to select a particular category, I could. If I wanted to filter by, say, paper, I could just start typing PA and paper would appear. Now, obviously, we don't have a lot of expenses in here, but this saves a lot of time once you do. We can also adjust the column width by simply dragging the columns. And up at the top, you'll notice that we have the ability to export expenses for tax filing purposes or personal record keeping. We can manage payees, manage expense categories, and of course, create a new expense. So payees are the payees assigned to a particular expense. So in this case, our payees were Staples and Stenograph. A payee needs to be in place before you can create an expense against that payee. So let's say, for instance, we wanted to create a new payee, Office Depot, and we needed to pick up some just general office supplies. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'll go ahead and select Manage Payees, and you'll see currently we've got Stenograph and Staples. I'll go ahead and add a new payee, and the payee name will be Office Depot. I don't want to enter a contact name or an account number. This is just a basic office supplies run that I've done, and I hadn't created Office Depot in the past, so I just want to add it. So in this case, I'll just leave the name as Office Depot, and we'll say something like in custom notes, this is for my own personal reference, closed on Sundays. This is just, this doesn't appear on a report or anything like that. This is just a convenient place to save additional information that may be applicable to you or your location. So now that we've got that payee in place, and payees can be accessed by simply clicking on payees over on the left, we'll go back into expenses and we'll go ahead and create an expense against that Office Depot payee that we just created. So I'll click Add New Expense. We'll say the amount was $45. And as far as payee is concerned, we'll select Office Depot. I don't have an invoice number associated with this expense. As for date, we'll say it happened sometime last week. As far as the payment type, I'll just say personal credit card. And as for category, we'll just say office supplies, which we've got in here because this is a federal account, and federal accounts have the administrative office categories, expense categories built in. We also have the ability to create custom expense categories, which I'll show you after we create this expense. For this particular expense type, we'll select official, and then from an itemization standpoint, we'll just say pens and a desk. It's a pretty cheap desk. And just like when we created the payee, we can also add notes. I'll go ahead and save this expense, and now when we head back to the expenses main screen, we'll see that new expense that we just created. I had mentioned the addition of creating custom categories. Up here at the top, we can select Manage Expense Categories. This information can also, or the ability to add an expense category can also be found within Settings, Expense Categories. We talk more in depth about this within the settings video, but however, just to give you a quick rundown, I can add a new category so that later when I expense something against it, I don't have to type it in each time. And if we head back to our dashboard, our expensed value will have increased, and then any associated reports that are expense related, those values will have already been updated the moment we create the expense. And then if I view my expenses here, you'll see here's our Office Depot expense that we had created. Thanks for watching.